I'm Elian from Impact Hub, and together with Natalie, I will co-moderate this event tonight. Startup Campus is co-led by Impact Hub and ZHAW, and is a powerful consortium of many different higher education institutions and other startup players from the ecosystem. Yeah, exactly. So before we start with the questions, each of the 3 entrepreneurs we have here would shortly introduce themselves. So first, I would like to give the word to Philipp, the founder of OKOMO.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, hey, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me, for the opportunity. It's fantastic to be here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with all of you. I hope it's quite engaging and there is, at least in the end, a couple of questions that, of course, I'm happy to answer. My name is Philipp. I'm the founder of OKOMO. OKOMO is a B2B software as a service startup. It was founded in 2018 here in Switzerland, and since a bit more than a year ago, we also have an entity in Berlin, Germany. Our mission is quite simple. Our mission is to help companies, organizations across Switzerland, basically in the DACH region, but also worldwide, to communicate with their online customers as simple and as personal as on site. Because we found that in this increasingly digital and automated world in which we live today, you know, all the chatbots, these anonymous contact forms that we'll find on websites, especially for companies that sell more complex and less self-explanatory products, they miss out on a huge opportunity, business opportunity, if they don't have the opportunity to communicate and advise their online customers in person and show products live over their website too. So what we want to do is help them to create the best possible experience for their potential customers who shop not in a physical store but online, and to connect them to salesperson, to people, to experts who work for that brand, completely irrespective of time and place, because we believe that companies that create personal, immersive, remote interactions with their customers, they can achieve higher success rates almost across every metrics. They can increase conversion rates on their websites, they can increase sales, they can increase customer loyalty. So what we want to do, or basically how we want to do it, is quite simple. We take a potential customer who lands on a company's website and give her the opportunity, the ability to literally beam herself directly into a showroom, for instance, a physical store, with just one click on a button on this website of this company, and connect her with an appropriate product expert via voice, via webcam, video, for instance, without having to register anywhere or download anything, and in a data privacy compliant way. So in a nutshell, we literally turn her phone, her tablet, her smartphone, PC, whatever device she's using, into a window into that physical store. Which is especially, of course, in this, pandemic times, in Corona times, even more important for companies who maybe not even have an opportunity to welcome their potential customers in a physical store, for instance. And we've therefore seen incredible demand over the past years, of course, but even more in the recent months, from local businesses, small businesses. We also work with international brands like Siemens, like BMW, Canon, who, thanks to OKOMO, can become available and engage with their online audience wherever they are, completely personally, securely, and conveniently from the comfort of their own home. This is basically what we do.
Thank you very much, Philipp. That sounds really interesting. And I'm already looking forward to hear how your business model changed through the pandemic. So next we will hear from Andrea. He's the co-founder of Wingwall, what his startup is about.
Yes, hi everyone from my side. My name is Andrea. I'm the co-founder of Wingwall, and also from my side, it's a great pleasure to be here and talk with you guys about the challenges and the experience in regards to entrepreneurship in this special time of crisis right now. So we, and that's Philipp and I, we founded Wingwall in June 2020. So basically in the middle of the crisis. only shortly after the first lockdown in Switzerland. And that was a very exciting time. And I'm looking forward to share some insight with you. What we do with Wingwall is basically two things. Number one is consulting of SMEs, so small and medium enterprises, and also startups. And we do that on various topics with a special focus on expansion, growth topics, but also like process management, process optimization. And that goes hand in hand with also some innovation steps and innovation efforts. And number two is that we actually do some company building. So we support the development and realization of ideas, business models, products or services, including market launch. So basically we do build companies out of ideas, and these ideas can either originate in-house, so that can be our ideas, or from other people, and that's the more important or more exciting part, from other people who approach us, or even companies that approach us. And to make that a bit more tangible, I would like to give you one brief example for each of these service types. So regarding consulting, for example, we are supporting a Swiss startup brand right now with their expansion plans. So actually we do that from a strategy point of view, but also to a implementation point of view. And the second one, in the company building area, we are currently building a technical machine to improve hygiene and health aspects in Swiss gyms, in Swiss schools. So this is basically also like a topic that emerged from the crisis, which is quite interesting to mention here. Yeah, and maybe one or two things about myself. I got my educational background at the University of Zurich, where I studied business administration, both in the bachelor's and the master's. I gained some working experience in marketing and sales, and right after my studies, I went into management consulting, where I worked for Accenture in the financial industry sector. And from there on, yeah, Wingwall emerged more and more. And my co-founder, Philip, I met him there. And that was our starting point to launch our own business.
Thank you very much, Andrea. So last but not least, we will hear from Aike. She's the co-founder of Luckabox. They also went through a big high during the Corona concerning their business.
Yeah, hi, my name is Aike Festini. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Luckabox. My background is I'm originally Austrian. I moved to Switzerland 9 years ago. I've always been in the IT management, IT strategy space before I actually conducted an MBA at IMD, which was the time when the entrepreneur bug actually hit me. It was clear that after the MBA, I would actually dive into entrepreneurship. And that's when I met my co-founder, Maite. She's had logistics for breakfast. Basically, she grew up in a logistics family. So it was her logistics background and my IT background that actually was the birth of Luckabox. The vision of Luckabox is basically to make last mile simple. And I know that mission sounds really easy. It's not. We've built a technology that basically integrates currently up to 50 different logistics partners and gives retailers easy access to their services through technology. So basically it's bringing last mile into the current century. And yeah, I'll tell you all about how and what the crisis did with our company. It was, for us, the crisis wasn't a crisis, it was a chance. That's it from me.
Thank you very much, Aike. So with this intro, we can already dive into the first question. So as you heard, Philip and Aike founded their businesses before the crisis, and Andrea founded it right in the middle of it. So Aike, let's hear from you first. How did your business change due to the Corona crisis?
When the Corona crisis first hit us, we went into a firefighting mode because many of our customers are retailers that we ship from store for. So all of a sudden they needed different channels. They needed different ways to get their products to the customers. Plus, they needed all kinds of services. So we were forced to basically use all our partners that we had in the field and use all their services. Before that, we only offered on demand from store. And after that, now we're a complete last mile fulfillment solution, basically. It first it really forced us to help them. Then it forced us to completely change or have a complete fresh look at what we're actually offering and how we can change the offer that we're currently putting out. That was one. First, we looked at the customers, and then we had, after our customers were basically taken care of, we looked at how can we use our solution to maybe help those in need. You know, right? I think entrepreneurship is a lot about solving problems. So we used our technology to provide it for the elderly to, have somebody go shopping, etc. So we did a little pivot there just for the needs of those in need at that time. But just the big pivot into opening all kinds of last mile services to our customers forced us into changing the tech. Our team tripled. Our customer base doubled. We basically came out a bigger, stronger, more stable company than we were before. So it's been more than a year now, and yeah, to us it was really good. And I never feel really good about saying this, but to us it was something really good that happened.
That's very impressive what you did within this year. So I guess it required a lot of flexibility as well to adapt and change this quickly.
Yeah, you change or you die, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Philipp, what about OKOMO? How did your business change?
I think there is a couple of different areas that we can look at in the way of how we worked as a team since the pandemic. Very little has changed for us because we, as a very international company, almost from day one, with employees in the Ukraine, in Germany, in Switzerland, and as a completely remote working company, we were really used to the home office type of work. So therefore it was very normal for us, and we continued working from home, like nothing has changed since the pandemic. We know from other companies who have these very traditional setups, and they had to change all the processes and everything that came with it. They struggled. In this case, very simple, almost no change whatsoever. From a sales standpoint, in fact, we did acquire all of our customers and also build every single partnership over the past 12 months without meeting any of them in person physically. This is also something that has not really changed that much. Of course, we're trying to meet potential customers also on site. We try to travel to these people and try to convince them. This changed in the sense that we went from randomly meeting potential customers to complete virtual selling. And it worked fine, also thanks to, of course, our own technology, which allowed us and still allows us, of course, to have this online customer engagement irrespective of time and place in a virtual way, but still as personal as possible. The demand of our solution, our own product, increased, however, extremely extraordinary, I would say, since the start of the pandemic, because the need for virtual communication, not only within the company, for internal communications, there were many solutions like Teams and Slack and all these other, even Zoom, virtual communication tools that the company started to implement, but also realized that the communication with one of the most important stakeholders of them, the customer, the potential customer who has no idea who they should reach out to, and the website as the only sales channel that remained more or less effective, realized that these tools weren't really there. They might have had an anonymous contact form. Maybe they have a simple chatbot or a chat on their website, but realized that these more complex, more trustworthy conversations they typically had on site at the customer or in their branch or in their shop completely went away. And therefore we're looking for a solution who could help them do that and keep in contact with their potential clients. And this is exactly what we finally were able to deliver them. We already had the solution up and running. We bootstrapped the first version of the product before the pandemic hit us. We already had first pilot customers. We already increased the solution and optimized and tweaked the software with early adopter customers. So we were basically ready. And finally, of course, we were also able to even, attract customers and engage with potential customers of ours that weren't even, potential customers before. There were new use cases, for instance, virtual events that have emerged that we ourselves had not even thought of before in the crisis. So in a nutshell, it's also fair to say, I think we were lucky. Everything was right then that we were before. We were at the right price and the right time. So that's simply it. And I think we can now build on this and accelerate on this, but it really kickstarted us a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Philipp. It's really nice to see how many kind of personal technologies evolved during that virtual time that we have. So Andrea, you were just about to found your company and then the pandemic hit. So did you have any doubts at that point to switching to a self-employed life?
Of course, yes, I had some huge doubts, and I think, and I hope it's kind of normal also, as I see it as a quite big step, a step out of the comfort zone to build an own business. Yeah, the story is like we actually wanted to found our Wingwall in February already, and that was the starting point of Corona. It slowly started in Switzerland with the first few cases. And we then decided actually to postpone our founding. We wanted to see how it goes, what the impacts were. But we still worked on our company. And maybe in the retrospective, that was maybe an advantage as we have more time for our strategy, for our positioning. So we could really deep dive into all the planning stuff. And at the same time, and that was very interesting, we saw that a lot of companies were struggling with the situation, obviously, and also actively looking out for support. And that's why we were so confident and decided to start a business right after the lockdown. So in June 2020, we then founded the business. So yeah, I would say, of course, I had some huge doubts. The situation was very fragile, but we also felt the market demand, and we received some very helpful feedback about our approach, about our services, and that motivated us a lot. And regarding the funding process, I would say, I think we were more cautious than we would have been otherwise. So we challenged every single thing a bit more. We were a bit more precise, I would say. And yeah, in the end, I think it's a good thing. So, but we never know because yeah, the situation was as it was. But yeah, it was an interesting but also a bit scary process.
Okay, so but as I hear from you, it sounds like you don't regret that you did it and that you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Great. So you already told a little bit about the chances that the pandemic actually brought to your business. So were there also challenges that you were facing, Aike?
I was just thinking that whether I was scared to actually plunge into entrepreneurship, and I really wasn't, but that's a different topic. Challenges during the pandemic. Yes, we raced around during the pandemic. We were scared a little bit because the media was saying, investors will now be careful and everybody's going to watch their money more. And yes, it's true, but I think true investors also see the opportunity in a crisis. Or I shouldn't say true, sorry, that's judgmental. Some investors see the opportunity as well. So we did actually raise the round successfully. But I've heard from other startups that were struggling. So it's, I think funding could have been a challenge, but to us, we're not a completely remote team, as Philipp said, as Philipp's team is. We're of course now forced to be a completely remote team, but for me on a psychological and emotional level, that hurt. I really, really like to be close to the people that I work with and joke around and get together and, you know, put our heads together when we have an issue or a challenge and a problem. So I miss that. To this day, I miss it, and I can't wait to actually get back into the office, even though we also have a part of the team in Ukraine, Montenegro, Vienna, etc. But I like to sit with the people. So that for me was, I thought what was very challenging was onboarding new people, because that's something we've never done completely remotely before. We were very used to having people sit in the office, and, you know, there's this concept of osmotic listening. You just by being in the same space, you learn from what you hear other people speak about. That's just completely gone. We found that a big challenge, and we didn't necessarily succeed very well. I think onboarding was very painful for those that were onboarded during the time. We've gotten better now. We're still hiring at quite a high pace, but we also do meet sometimes, but don't tell anybody. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge, I think, onboarding new people. And funding, even though it was supposed to maybe be harder, wasn't.
That's interesting. Yeah, that team aspect I can totally relate to. I think that must have been hard for almost everybody. Philipp, what were your challenges during the pandemic?
I can agree with everything that Aike said. I think we were in a very similar situation. I mean, from hiring, we were hiring, I mean, very, very heavily, I think, in the second half of last year, because we were growing and we needed to find people. I think it was for sure not easy not being able to meet physically, because even though we are a complete remote working team before the crisis, on maybe a monthly basis or at least a quarterly basis, at least the people in Switzerland, we still met. We had these retreats, we had maybe an afternoon, a full day, one day, I mean, workshop type of, I mean, setup. We met in cafes, at the university, somewhere else. So we still had this physical somehow connection that brought us together. In the very beginning, we were even fortunate to win a startup prize from the Post Finance, which allowed us to at least spend a couple of months in a co-working space paid by Post Finance. And we really learned, especially in the very beginning, how helpful and how, I mean, rewarding working together in a physical room can be. And this, of course, completely changed. We also added people in different countries, and given the borders that were completely closed, me not being able to travel to Germany, for instance, made especially these like new teams that we were trying to build there. And also, I mean, landing the message, landing the vision way harder. I said in the beginning, we opened this office in Berlin, for instance, just before the pandemic started, but I didn't have a chance and opportunity to travel to Germany again after the office opening. And this was hard. We've also been actively recruiting, as I said before, in the recent months. And many of the people that we currently have in the team, I never met them. And honestly, I don't know how they look, everything below, I mean, here, because we only have virtual meetings, and it works. But establishing this culture and building the team spirit, I think, especially with new team members, this is really a challenge. And I think you need to communicate, you need to over communicate almost. But I think overall we've managed it really well so far and made for sure the best out of it. But I think all of us, of course, are really looking forward to hopefully meeting the team on site again soon. And the whole fundraising thing, a bit the same that Aike mentioned. I think you need to really focus on investors who understand and see not only the challenges, but especially the opportunities as they are ahead of you. And if you select the right ones, and of course try to build relationships, which is extremely important, also more on a virtual and less on a physical side, and you can do this, then it shouldn't be, or hasn't been in our case, that much of an issue so far.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear. So Andrea, you're only a team of 2, so I guess this whole team thing was a bit less of a challenge for you. Do you have other challenges that you're facing?
Yes, I think, well, our biggest challenge was, of course, the customer interaction. So I think our business and our lead management is basically 100% on people relationship, built on relationships, and also a lot of trust. And to develop trust through like online meetings is of course way more difficult than in person. So yeah, we missed that, of course, as you guys. We missed the direct interaction, the people-to-people interaction. That was a huge challenge, but I think it has also some good points. I think we learned to show our added value more clearly, more precisely, because we had to put in more effort. So also like the time from, let's say, a first contact with a person or a people or a business to an actual mandate or working contract, whatever, takes more time definitely than it has before. But I think the relationship afterwards is based on more solid, let's say a more solid structure. And I think that's the balance, or that's the trade-off, and I think we got used to it a bit more, but we're still looking forward when we can interact with our customers or potential customers again in a more physical way.
But if I can add one point, what's super interesting is especially bigger customers before the crisis, they had these expectations of like, if you want to talk to me, please come on site. And I think this really changed. These customers who, I mean, almost forced you to come, even though you have to travel hours and lose a lot of time and money. Once of a sudden, everything became very different. And of course, these virtual meetings worked. So since nobody had an opportunity to travel, everybody had to stay at home. I think this changed, and it certainly helped us to, I mean, engage with customers, big and small, also in Germany, in Austria, everywhere. I mean, even flying had maybe been an important aspect to this whole like customer engagement piece, became less relevant, and it was just normal. And I'm super interested to see how this changes now, whether companies remain like, okay, I don't care, we do it virtually, physically, or let's see, or whether everything goes back like home office versus no home office, goes back to the old like traditional saying of like, okay, you come because in case you are important enough, then please make the effort. This is something we have to figure out. I don't know, but in our case, it certainly helped that this expectation of customers, potential customers especially, completely changed.
Yeah, that's a really interesting part. And I'm quite convinced that some of the home office and also some of the virtual meetings will stay even after the pandemic. Mm. So crisis management is a topic that wasn't new. I mean, maybe we didn't have such a big crisis or a crisis that affected so many people and almost all businesses. But there were always crises, maybe crises which affect your sector or crises which affect your startup in particular. So do you think you can handle crisis better now with going through such a big crisis if something small would come up in the future which might only concern your business? Aike, what do you think?
I think as a startup, you go through a crisis every other month. So I think your muscles should already be rather toned when it comes to crisis. What we've learned definitely is that we just need to communicate more, be open to change even faster. I don't think, I mean, from a business perspective, I think crisis management needs to be a big part of the DNA of an entrepreneur, I think. I mean, you all know this curve that an entrepreneur goes through every day, right? You wake up, you think it's going to be an amazing day. 10 minutes later, you think, oh my God, I suck. 15 minutes later, you think my product sucks. 20 minutes, think you're not going to survive. Then at the end, you think, oh my God, we're going to be the next unicorn. You go through it every day. And it's, I think it's all about your personality and how you then deal with the team. I think the crisis is all about leadership. So for us, it was a lot of communication.
Yeah, I really like the sentence, crisis is all about leadership. Mm-hmm. Andrea, what do you think about that?
I fully agree. I think communication, key aspect, absolutely. I think we learn to be a bit more pragmatic sometimes, especially in the way what all the bureaucracy aspects, in regards to the bureaucratic aspects. I mean, we see that a lot, that we have, I mean, normally when we enter a project or we start to build a company, there is a lot of like, yeah, stuff to be settled, and we tried to reduce the effort, to be more, to be faster, and to be more agile, to really get into working quicker. And I think that's also a good thing, that we saw that it worked. So we can take that that as a positive point from the crisis as well, that we can be faster than we used to be, because we had to adapt. And
I think, if I may add, I think crisis actually adds more focus to what's essential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think agility is also super important. I think as soon as you are agile, as soon as you are fast and you can quickly, I mean, change or at least tweak and optimize what needs to be optimized, and are not too much stuck to a specific plan or really need to follow certain rules and guidance. Of course, guidance is important, but if you have this like notion of it's an ongoing experiment and you just do what works and you continue doing the stuff that works very well, and maybe after the first or second time something doesn't really work in the current situation, then you might not do it anymore. I think this is extremely important. In our case, we had different issues because for us, it was not mainly the crisis management that was the biggest concern, but more like focusing on the challenge of adapting the organization and building the team as quickly as possible, because we knew we had this window of opportunity that was extremely open, or still is extremely open, that will close again rather quickly too. And in order to accelerate the business, given the unexpectedly high demand that we had, also expectations from investors, and the growth that we were seeing thanks to Corona, put us in, I mean, in this like, okay, now you can do it, but you also have to do it, because otherwise you might not follow up with all the others, because there was more competition coming into the market. Just to give you an example, our user base, for instance, grew so much faster than expected that we had to immediately invest time and resources in scaling the technological infrastructure in the shortest time possible, because we had these customers, we were able to acquire customers, they were super happy and eager to work with us, but in order to not lose them again, we needed to make sure that, I mean, we were also able to scale the solution and also scale the infrastructure and make sure that all these, I mean, technical aspects that were, of course, an expectation and they just needed to work, allowed them to really do what we promised them to do. So there were different aspects that we still, I mean, or that we had to focus on that weren't really on our, I mean, short-term roadmap or maybe on our short-term plan. And this needs to give you this agility and we need to, I mean, yeah, need to allow you to change maybe also the short and mid-term plans and reallocate resources just to make this happen. And I think this is a challenging thing that you also have to learn while you navigate in these crises like the COVID-19 ones.
Yeah.
Even though we are in a super successful track record at the moment.
Yeah, I think you all definitely proved that you have the skills that entrepreneurs need with your flexible and agile work that you did in the past months and years. And I think it's also really interesting to see, even if that you're totally out of 3 different industries, you have quite a lot of similarities in what you went through in the crisis. So that's also interesting. And with this, I want to open the stage for our participants to ask more questions that weren't answered in this first questions that I asked. And for this, we would like to raise your hand. So in the bar below, you see reactions, and there you can raise your hand. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and then I give the word to Natalie, who will guide you through this.
So please don't be shy. I'm sure all of you have questions, either to all three together or individually. Just let us know. And it would be great if you could turn on your camera so that it is a bit more personal for the speakers and they know to whom they talk to. No questions, then I'll start with one to Philipp. So you mentioned that that technology was an aspect that needed accelerating much earlier than you anticipated. Did this also mean that funds or probably external investments or money, so the need for funds accelerated earlier than you anticipated in your business plan?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the beginning, we bootstrapped the first version of the product for quite some time. So we decided to grow sustainably. That was important, and the decision that we took in the founding team. Of course, you need a lot of patience, and we have a very lean methodology approach in the way we built the product, in how we built the team. So given the fact that we also had a business model as a subscription-based B2B software as a service company, and we're able to, like, almost from day one generate recurring and sort of predictable revenue, we were able to build the business without the big external fundings. Then we had friends and family investment in the beginning, a couple of loans that helped us gradually increase. I mean, of course, the building the team and adding more people and expanding the product features. But of course, realized that now we really needed this extra money and external investment in order, I mentioned this window of opportunity, in order to really accelerate the business as quickly as we can and keep this like huge momentum that we have in the system. And just to give you some context, we started fundraising long before the pandemic, but it takes time. I'm always saying, like, it's a bit like dating, from the first date, swiping to the left or right, I don't know, in Tinder, to the final marriage. I mean, it takes a long time because you need to build trust, you need to meet, you need to really understand whether this marriage works. And we negotiated with different investors here in Switzerland, but also in Germany. And we had this one investor, for instance, our negotiations with this one investors who came very far, but then had to be stopped from one day to the next, since because of COVID-19, this investor was no longer allowed to invest in new companies due to an internal investment stop in order to be able to fully support their existing portfolio customers with total commitment and concentration, because they had to make sure that they could at least help their existing portfolio customers in order to make sure they have a return on investment, and therefore lost one of these investors that we spend already a lot of time and of course resources in from one day to the other. This was tough and certainly very disappointing for us as well. However, we eventually managed to win over another group of investors here in Switzerland. I was even able to meet them, of course, wearing masks and everything, on site a couple of times. And yeah, of course, it was hard, but we finally managed to, I mean, almost get through all the negotiations, all the conversations, all the discussions with almost no physical interaction, almost exclusively virtual. But it finally worked. And again, it goes back to these expectations, because both knew there was no other way of doing it. Certainly helped. But yeah, I met them over the whole like fundraising process, I think twice or three times in total only.
Thank you very much for sharing this story.
Thanks.
Dear participants, please don't be shy. Our guests don't bite, especially not online. If you don't want to speak up, you can also write your question in the chat. Amadou.
Hello, good evening. I had one question about intellectual property. Because from the moment you, let's say you have your mature business case and you have to go there and find out investors or partners, how is it with the protection of your intellectual properties? Like, means the fear that your idea is not taken away or copied partially or totally or whatsoever. How was it in your case?
Is your question directed to somebody specific or to all three?
No, to all of them, because I guess
Okay.
they had probably different ways to answer this, or I will see.
Aike, let's start with you.
Yeah. Hi, Amadou. Thanks for breaking the ice here. Much appreciated. We were asked the question about IP very, very often. As a tech company, it's very hard to protect what we're building. There are some companies out there that go into systems and methods patents, but the only true secret to this question is it's all about speed. Everybody can always copy you, you know, most likely even your idea is a copy of something. Just you need to execute better, you need to execute faster. That's the only thing. I hate the question when an investor asks me, so what about Amazon? You know, I mean, it's like you can always ask a startup, you know, the market leader in anything. Of course, they could probably kill me, you know, but whatever. I'm just gonna be fast. I'm gonna focus on what I want to build, and that's it. It's different when you're in the med tech. It's, you know, but in software and in the business that we're in, it's all about speed. It's speed and execution.
So, but then, you know, speed to execute, then you need the fund. So somehow it's connected. You need to get the partners, the fund, and then execute as fast as possible.
Right, but you don't need the IP protect. You don't need any protection to be fast, right? And if you're showing first traction, I mean, it always depends on where you are. But as soon as you're showing some traction, you probably get some funds.
Okay. Thanks.
Philipp, is IP a topic that you stumbled upon?
Sorry?
Philipp?
Yeah, I mean, we get the same question from time to time, but as I said before, it's an ongoing experiment. And I think given the fact that you need to change stuff so quickly and you go from Y to B and then from C to F and back and forth and whatever, there is so much like change in the whole system that whatever like even patent or IP you have, I mean, might become completely irrelevant in only a couple of weeks or months. And like Aike said, execution excellence in the end makes the difference. And second, this is something I want to add, is like finding the niche is also extremely important. Focus. I don't think you can focus on everything. So finding the right customers, the right vertical, the right industry, the right market, whatever, the right feature set really sets you apart. And I think acting quick, going with the flow, being open, but still have this focus makes the difference. And yeah, IP or patents, as Aike said, maybe in medtech, maybe in this like huge, if you develop a drug, of course you need to have these 10 years, I mean, pre-development time and everything. This is a different story. But since in software, everything changes so quickly, as I said before, there were a couple of use cases that we now, I mean, are almost like our main revenue streams or our cash cows. They weren't even in the business plan a year ago. And the features that we add for this specific use case weren't even on our roadmap 2 years ago. So you constantly need to change and adapt and build the business with the market, and building ecosystems and partnerships and connecting the dots. I think it's more important than just having a product that nobody else is allowed to do or build, given what you have.
If somebody's going to copy you, if somebody wants to copy you, they're going to copy you anyways. And they're just going to switch like a little bit up, and then they're good to go. So
And I think every founder goes through this. Every founder goes through this. In the beginning, you have this idea and you don't want to talk to anyone because you say, oh, you know, if I mention it to someone, then it's certainly being copied and don't tell to everyone. And then you finally open up and you say, listen, the more I speak, the more I share, the more feedback I get, the better I can improve, because others, maybe they add ideas or they have another like angle, the way they look at it, that really helps me like go from, again, A to B. And I think the more you speak, the more you share. Sharing is caring, as we said before, but it's not just caring, but it's also sending and receiving. And I think this is extremely important, sharing, getting feedback, going with even customers who help you build and further improve the product. Plus, and I think this is another important point in the beginning, the same with competition. In the beginning, I was almost like up and down when I saw another competitor popping up, a website with a customer that a company that maybe sells or develops more or less the same, until I realized, wow, if I would be the only one, or OKOMO would be the only company in the world who does this online customer engagement, there might be a problem somewhere, because if there is no market, if there is no other like companies who do more or less the same, or realized or figured out that there is a market, then you might be in the wrong spot. And of course, again, you need to find your niche, you need to find ways to differentiate yourselves with others. But once you have these bigger players that also enter a certain market, this also gives you hope and confidence, and I mean, proof of execution almost, not execution, but proof of concept or proof of market, in order to then deliver this execution of excellence and yeah, convince others that you are better, faster, and whatever, maybe more accurate to what they need.
So competition is healthy.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you for your feedback. I think it really helps. It really helps, at least for me, hopefully for others also. Thank you.
You're welcome, Amadou. That's why we are here and organizing these events. Any other question from somebody in the room? Please raise your hand. You can also write it in the chat. Naira. We cannot hear you yet.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for organizing this very interesting event. Very interesting people, startupper. Very interesting was to hear. I have a question to Andrea Schärer, which is supporting startups. I have one idea, but it's not really global and about IT. I would like to create some or start one startup which is about communication, real communication, not online, but vice versa, really another way. I would like to ask if it's possible in this time, or it's really needed to be in IT and online. It's really one must have IT. If it's possible to create startup which is really about communication, real.
So physical
Thank you very much.
Communication.
And if his company, I read also it's branding, if it's possible, or it's really only on online now. It's better to think about something about online. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question, Naira. Very interesting question. And we ask ourselves the exact same point regarding physical or digital products. And we actually came a bit to the conclusion that we would never like exclude something, but we actually want to put a bit of focus on also physical products and also like a bit more probably local products. So it's not our goal actually to find the new unicorn, but more also put some efforts in regional cool ideas or products. And yeah, in general, I would never say no to something. So I don't know what your idea is exactly, but I think there is a chance, of course, and you should definitely try to get more information or get more solid about your idea. But I want to encourage you to to go for it. It's not all about digital or technology products. There's a lot, or there's a big market also for physical stuff, or as you said, like for interaction stuff, human stuff. And yeah, from our point of view, we actually have from the company building aspect, we only have physical products, or that we are currently collaborating or supporting.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Does anybody else want to raise the hand or write the question in the chat? Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much. I would have a question for Aike. As you already mentioned, this COVID crisis was obviously a huge opportunity for you guys. My question would be, how did you manage to scale up your business in this fast-growing phase? You already mentioned a few things about additional funding, but yeah, I'd be glad if you could elaborate on that a little bit, on this growth.
Is your name Vide or?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
I never said we managed to scale. We scaled. We're struggling. We're now 18 people, and we have a lot of challenges, internal challenges right now when it comes to structures, when it comes to processes, when it comes to roles and responsibilities, and when it comes to tech. So we're currently, apparently this is one of the magic numbers, between 15 to 18 people. So it's something that we're also getting external help for right now. But we managed, but it wasn't fun. Yeah, right. And I'm still not enjoying it. It's not smooth sailing right now. I feel like I'm a caterpillar, and it's very tight. Everything's very tight. So we're about to burst free, I hope. At the time when we went during the crisis, and we went from month to month, and we couldn't believe the growth. And it was hardly fathomable, right? And we onboarded new people as we went along. Not all of them were good hires, or fitting hires. Let's put it that way. It's just not fitting. And then the onboarding was hard. So it was a rather painful 12 months. But it's looking back right now, it's amazing. Right now I'm proud, and whenever you catch me in a good moment, I'm loving it all. But it's a lot of levers and areas that we're currently working on to really turning into the scale up that we are now about to become.
Thank you.
Does this answer your question, Vide?
Well, I would still like to have a little bit more insights into this topic, but yeah, what was your approach? That would be interesting to see. Like, how did you actually scale up your business? If you could elaborate on that a little bit, that would be good.
I feel like what you're asking for is a step-by-step instruction.
Not really step-by-step, but just let's say like some kind of strategy or approach that you went through.
Would I disappoint you if I told you we didn't have a strategy?
Not at all, no.
Okay, it's when you build a business, you feel areas that are, if you look at a heat map, that probably will go red, and you see that by issues popping up, be that bad data, be that actually unhappy customers. So you get the feedback. Unfortunately, you get it. It's all reactive. But as a startup, when you're building a company, you're always at the edge. You should never be comfortable. So it's always a little painful, and some areas are more painful than, maybe that's the strategy. Maybe some areas are more painful than the others, and that's what you solve. Another area will pop up, you solve it, and you do that by either improving the tech, refactor certain parts of your software, sit down and actually talk about, okay, so who's actually responsible to do X, Y, Z, and when do I shut up, and when does somebody else take over? So that maybe that's our strategy, but it's not that it's written down somewhere. And please hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to talk about this in more depth.
I will. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think really what you now experienced is a real life scenario of building up a startup. You don't always have a plan.
Absolutely, yeah.
We do have a very good question from Maranatha. I hope I do pronounce this name correctly. It also goes to Aike again. Women are underrepresented among the population of entrepreneurs. With that in mind, is there a recommendation that you can share for other women or females that are interested in founding their own ventures?
Yeah, I love and hate this question. And I'm surrounded by female entrepreneurs. So for me, the entrepreneurial world is female. in my perspective, I've never founded as a woman. I've found a company as an entrepreneur. So I've never thought about my gender, but I've never done that all my life. So whether you're a woman or a man, just go out and do it. It's just start. It's don't worry about gender, and best is you don't even think about gender, because as soon as you start thinking about gender, you're basically creating the gap that's not even necessarily there in the first place.
Thank you very much. We do have a follow-up question from Vivian. In addition, did you face a gender bias coming from the VCs during the pitching process? So from your point of view.
I'm hearing a few shocking things lately that are actually maybe making me less naive to this topic. Would you have asked me half a year ago, I would have said no. But I'm hearing things now that make me wonder. I once heard a VC actually say that even a female VC, when she looks at a woman's pitch deck, she questions the number 3 times as often as she does when she questions a man's number. That shocked me. But I personally, it's, when a VC turns you down, they probably don't tell you you're a woman and that's why I won't invest. So I never know the exact reason. I personally have never experienced, but I also don't know if I've ever been turned down and we're an all female led, like we're all female founders. So I think that's even a next level of bias, but we've never felt it, at least.
And you are very successful.
Thank you.
We do want to close the call in a short amount of time, but I do have a last round of questions, and it goes to Philipp. Are there areas where you would have required or wished for more support, for example, from the ecosystem, the government, or something similar now facing this crisis?
Not in our case.
Yeah.
Primarily, of course, we always take any support we get, and if there is anybody who wants to help, of course, we don't say no. I think the biggest challenge, once you start dealing with like governments or bigger institutions, is the huge amount of time that you invest in all this bureaucracy and all this administrative work that comes with it. So if I could ask for something, it's maybe not even the funding or the money or whatever, but more simple, like more agile processes, because if you need a person in the end in a small team that basically doesn't do anything else than understanding the whole like structures and guidance, and finally needs to fill out thousands of forms and forms of forms in order to ask or, finally get some little help, then I think the return on investment may be not justified to work with organizations like this. I wouldn't say this was the case, primarily the case in our case over the past 12 months, but this is more a general statement towards working with huge organizations. Even the big customers, it's the same. This constant like, do we really want to have this big brand, this logo, this customer with lots of potential, versus maybe a couple of smaller customers that are more like open and willing and really start engaging and quickly decide? versus these huge buying centers that you need to build and these tons of people you need to convince and these super long decision-making processes that maybe kill you as a startup, a small company who really needs to win and really needs to run, because slow motion doesn't work in startups. And you enter these slow motion phases when you work with big organizations, whether on the public sector side or also in corporate worlds. And this is this constant like balancing act that you have to do while asking for support, while working with customer, acquiring potential customers. But I wouldn't say it's either or, it's both, but just in the right ratio.
Thank you. Andrea, what are your thoughts about the startup ecosystem? And do you think that the ecosystem was strong enough to maneuver now this crisis?
I think that's a tough question. I think the ecosystem is very important, and I would say our personal ecosystem was very well functioning. But what we see a lot from our clients as well is that their ecosystems or the support also from the government was quite a challenge. And as you can imagine, as soon as there is like liquidity issues or like financial issues, then the problems become really emotional. And I think that was one of our key activities as well when we were working with a company or a startup that was was in a very, very tough situation. It was also this emotional stress from like disappointment with partners, disappointment from government treatments, whatever. And yeah, I think I don't know, it's a learning to really look for the right partners, the one that you can also like rely on in difficult times. But it's a challenge because I think in the business world more than in the human world, you look for yourself first, and then that makes it sometimes it makes it really difficult. But I think the importance of an ecosystem is huge, or is even like, I think it's during pandemic, but it's also a huge huge task to really to really put efforts in treating it good, both ways.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So Aike, we do have several people on the call who might be interested and ready now to take the plunge into entrepreneurship. May I ask you for your key recommendation or your one learning that you did that you would now like to pass on to future entrepreneurs in one sentence to make it more difficult?
Don't give up.
That's great. Philipp, what is your recommendation?
Follow your passion and look at it as an ongoing experiment.
Andrea?
I would say if you go for gold. You need the passion, you need the belief, otherwise you failed before you started.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. So with that, we would like to close the panel discussion and the Q&A. Thank you everybody for asking your questions. There are some more recommendations we would like to share with you. We touched base several times now on how important it is to have the right people around you and to have a strong team, also a strong founding team. So there is a free learning platform that we would like to recommend to you. It is called startupaccelerator.org. It is a micro-learning platform for startups as well as founders and people who are working in a startup. And there is a topic called building a strong founding team, where you have recommendations from other founders, where you have a learning canvas. So this is something we can strongly recommend you